All right, everyone, another Biden war might be looming as the Western world straggles on with its Byzantium-like haze, with a leader who doesn't really lead, isn't really legally entitled to lead anyway, so it's okay, but he's basically just a puppet at this point, and namely Biden. With the Western world weak, our enemies perceive that it's their chance to decide to invade their neighbors and take land and take resources and purge people and do all manner of things that we would prefer them not to do and generally warn them not to do when we are in a time of strength. The little nation of Guyana is not capable of defending itself against Venezuela. Therefore, the Brazilians have moved troops to the border. I think that they're there more to guide Guyanan civilians out of Guyana when the nation collapses should Venezuela decide to invade. And Venezuela is doing this in Essequibo for one specific reason, which is offshore oil drilling. That's the only reason that they would be interested in that land. There's no other purpose to it. Venezuela is a commie state that has a deeply dysfunctional economy. And Maduro's like, well, if we did have more oil, we could help solve our debt problem a little bit more. We don't have to pay our soldiers much anyway because the average person's making like $200 a year equivalent purchasing power and is entirely reliant upon Soviet-style bread lines. But the oil would help. People could have a second meal every day and they wouldn't even have to wait 3 hours to get it. People really, really love me once we seize all of that Guyanan oil. Now, I know what some of the East Bloc apologists, which have become more vocal online, will say. But Sticks, that area was part of Venezuela in the past. And it became a British colonial possession, and so, it's a big problem, and so they should take it back. Yeah, but the Guyanans, number one, don't want it taken back. They seem perfectly content to live in a marginally capitalistic country, although in Latin America, short of Javier, Milei, and a few others, you don't have a lot of real capitalists, I suppose. But the system works better. They don't want to give their oil to a foreign country after being shot at. Again, this is why the Brazilians have mobilized near the border. It's not to defend the Guyanans, probably. It's probably more about refugee movements. They're like, oh shit, all the Guyanans are going to be moving across the border. We're going to have to make sure we don't end up with 1 million extra people wandering around the Amazon jungle. That would be bad. And so we're going to have to do something. Now, the Biden administration has already said that the United States stands with Guyana. We've seen what the United States standing with you means over the last couple of years. But fuck nothing. U.S. ain't getting involved. If you think that we're going to wage a direct war on Venezuela, I don't think so. I think that would disturb the world's oil supply, and the greedy people that run the United States I don't think really want to do that, especially when the economy's already having problems. The reason why Ukraine got invaded, the reason why Taiwan could be invaded, the reason why Hamas did what it did and then resulting in the invasion of the Gaza Strip, and the reason why the Venezuelans even brought forth a referendum to state their opinion on whether the Venezuelans should invade. The reason these things are happening is because of the weakness of Western so-called leadership. There's no strong central leader at the moment. It's devolved into an oligarchy. It was understood prior that the United States led the Western sphere and would generally defend it. And under the Monroe Doctrine, by the way, we should get directly involved in what's happening in between Venezuela and Guyana. It would actually be justified by long-standing U.S. doctrine. It's in our own hemisphere. Literally our hemisphere. That was effectively the fucking point. It originally generally meant, hey, colonialists stay out of Latin America. We don't want you down there. You get a few little colonies in the Caribbean area and stuff, but no more. We're asserting hegemony over the hemisphere. It also means preventing external tampering that affects nations from within the sphere in general. Of course, Venezuela is partially an Eastern Bloc-controlled state. That Eastern Bloc is now led by China. It's not led by Russia anymore. Russia has the nukes. China has the money and the diplomatic influence at this point too, which must piss the Russians off to some degree. This would effectively be a form of imperialism, actually, of recolonializing the area. And I know what the justification will be. Well, it was our land to begin with, and then it was taken from us by evil Europeans. That was a long time ago, actually. That's nobody's alive today that was around at the time that the Grand Colombia collapsed or anything like that. We're talking ancient history at this point. At some point, a group of people have become distinct. They've got their own culture, their own ways, and so forth, and it's just sort of the way that things are. You can't really justify invading another country that doesn't want you there. Just because you have some sort of resource you want. I mean, when the United States does this, the East Blockers scream about imperialism. If the U.S. goes into Iraq, ostensibly to control the oil, people freak out. No shit, it's imperialistic. It's a form of soft imperialism to install a puppet state. What the fuck do you think Maduro has in mind? He doesn't even want to install a puppet state. He wants outright annexation of most of the nation's land area. So it's apples to oranges. They're both fruits, at least. Brazil is posturing as though they take very seriously the possibility that Venezuela is going to invade. What do I expect the U.S. to do? Probably nothing. Arm a few insurgent groups in Guyana and call it a day. We got a little bit on our plate right now. I mean, again, as with my Israel video this morning, I posit the question: how many wars and famine kids and stuff? How much can we fund? We are out of money. We're deep in debt, although a lot of it is held in form of bond domestically. We're deep in debt. We're barely able to get a budget passed. We're already embroiled in several conflicts. At the very least, this one would be in our own backyard as opposed to halfway across the fucking world. It's in the American hemisphere. I suppose you can justify involvement here more than you can in the war in Ukraine. But then again, Guyana v. Venezuela would be such a lopsided fight as far as manpower and military resources. I mean, Maduro's also got not just a standing military, but a whole bunch of commie irregulars in his country he can call out at any given time. He can use the irregulars to bully the domestic population, keep them in line while the whole military mobilizes, and he doesn't care. Venezuela would crush Guyana, probably in a fight. You'd have to resort to guerrilla warfare Vietnam style to have any other outcome. And then it would just, and the problem is, of course, Venezuela shares a land border and doesn't need air or sea power to force project in the region. Guyana doesn't really have a naval capability either, which doesn't help when most of your economy is offshore oil rigs. That's about all. Peace out.